This is episode 53 of the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast with best-selling author Nir Eyal.
Are there basic tenets to these products that make them so habit-forming? And most importantly, what I want to do is to try and bring these techniques to all sorts of industries, particularly the kind of industries that can help make people healthier.
Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. I am your host, Josh Trent, and this is your number one trusted resource for the accelerating world of fitness technology. Each week, we bring you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You'll gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse of what matters most for your fitness business in the age of exponential technologies. Today on the podcast, we're joined by best-selling author, speaker, and behavior change expert, Nir Eyal, as he shares the powerful insights and strategies that companies inside and outside the fitness industry are using to create engaging products and foster repeat clientele. In this episode, we navigate the intersection of psychology, technology, and business as Nir provides a comprehensive approach for using this modern tech to build habit-forming products and how to apply these techniques to the wellness and fitness worlds. We'll dive into the psychological principles that lead to habit change with Nir Eyal's hook model, which involves four main steps: trigger, action, variable reward, and investment. He explains the value of understanding these different stages and how building around your user's own internal drivers will help to create an emotionally rewarding experience and keep customers coming back for more. But with all the advances in our modern fitness world, how can club owners and pros combine new tech and these habit-forming principles to make a profound impact on health, create loyal fans, and increase member retention? The answer to that question and much more takeaways for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals in this episode with Nir Eyal. I've been so looking forward to this, Nir, and let's just dive right in, man. I'm talking with Nir Eyal. He is a best-selling author of Hooked, and one of the best things I ever heard from you, Nir, was on a previous episode with Wellness Force. There's a quote I'd love to start a conversation with. You said, "Wherever new technologies suddenly make a behavior easier, new possibilities are born." This is something that's so powerful. I think a lot of club owners and operators listening can relate to this. We see technology growing right now exponentially, yet there's still a lag time in club adoption and how this technology is really making that sustainable behavior change come in. So just so excited to talk with you today on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me here.
People know you from your work, and how long have you been attacking this, human design, behavioral design, how technology impacts the human? How many years has this been?
2008, I started a company in the gaming and advertising industry. And at the intersection of those two businesses that are, really dependent on changing user behavior. Advertisers don't run those ads for their health. They run them because they change behavior. And gaming companies know better than anyone how to, change what you do so that you can play the game and enjoy it. So at the intersection of those two industries, I learned a ton about how to change people's behavior. And at my last company, when that was acquired, I had some time on my hands afterwards, and I wanted to really understand what is it about these technologies when you think about Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and WhatsApp and Slack and Snapchat. Are there basic tenets to these products that make them so habit-forming? And most importantly, the work I do is not for them. They already know these techniques. What I want to do is to try and bring these techniques to all sorts of industries, particularly the kind of industries that can help make people healthier. Mm-hmm. And so, what we see time and time again is, great people who are building the kind of products and services that would improve people's lives if they only used the product, right? Whether that's a gym membership or a piece of fitness equipment or a new diet program or a way to save money or a way to connect with their family. There's so many great products out there that nobody freaking uses, or they don't use enough to actually make a difference in their life.
This adoption rate too, Nir the adoption in the fitness industry, one of the ethos of this Fit Tech podcast and what the FitC organization is doing is just how do we get people to adopt this for consumer behavior? IRSA 2016, you spoke on this, consumer behavior, creating these habit-forming products. Can you give us just a quick snapshot of that talk at IRSA?
Yeah, my basic premise was I asked the organizers, what would you like me to talk about? What's kind of the biggest problem in the industry? They said the first thing out of their mouth before I even finished my sentence was churn. I think they said it was something like 2/3. So as high as 2/3 of the industry churns every year. The customers just churn out every year. And I just, I couldn't catch my breath because that's just a ridiculous amount of churn. Yeah. This is exactly the kind of problem I address is how do you get people to stick with your company? Because as we all know, it's much, much cheaper to keep a customer than it is to acquire a new one. But particularly when it comes to the fitness industry, gym owners just feel like, well, this is just par for the course. I have no control over people leaving my facility. All I got to do is keep advertising to bring in new people. But that's a tremendous amount of money that you got to spend, and you're fighting against all your competition. I think it's much better to focus on strategies that can actually keep the customers you already have coming back.
Yes, and you provide this information to club owners, also a lot of companies that are just looking for the use of technology in an integrous way. We see a landscape right now where we have Facebook and Instagram that, in my opinion, isn't always having the health in mind of the consumer. Would you agree?
Well, I think it's really about how you use it. There's been studies that show that people who use Facebook in one way have a lower amount of well-being. They report lower well-being, whereas people who use it in a different way report higher amounts of well-being. And the differentiating factor is how you use it. So it turns out if you just consume these products, if you just use them to, kill boredom and you just like read your feed all day, that doesn't leave you feeling much better. But it turns out if you actually participate and if you comment and if you interact with your actual real friends, and it becomes an addition to your life as opposed to a replacement for friends in your life, then people report higher senses of well-being. So, like every technology, it really is how we use it. I don't think any of these technologies are inherently good or bad. That being said, I think, if it does do you harm, then I think there are definitely some things that we should do to excise it from our life.
We're seeing this new term, Nir. I don't know if you've heard of this, betterment technology. Brian O'Rourke, the president of FITSE, talked about this betterment technology, including health and wellness and just anything at all in regards to tech, whether it be a device or SaaS platform that's up-leveling the human condition. Are you seeing any kind of discussions around this term betterment technology?
Well, I definitely see this as an industry trend, and this is what gets me so excited about being in this industry is that, I don't work for companies like Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, and, they already know these techniques. What I'm really excited about is how can we bring these techniques to the rest of the world? So if you're building the kind of product that can, better people's lives, as you mentioned, that's what I like to work on. I want these techniques to get out there. Now, there's no way to separate what makes something fun and engaging and something that people want to do from making it something that people sometimes go overboard and get addicted to. I mean, look, even our gyms, right? We're all desperate to get people to come to our facilities, or at least many of your listeners. How can we get people to engage with our health products and engage with our facilities? But we all know that there's some people in the gym who are addicted to lifting weights, right? We see them all the time. There's an unhealthy relationship there with physical activity. The idea is how can we use some of the good stuff that keeps people coming back to change their lives while still helping some of the bad aspects?
Why do you believe that some of these gyms are very successful when they use technology? We see so many things, and we've talked about on the show, Nir, whether it's iBeacon or geotagging or using a wearable. There's so many things out there. I think a lot of club owners just get overwhelmed on what to choose. Why do you believe that the gyms that integrate technology are successful? In other words, is there a reason why some of these products fail, some of these approaches fail to integrating tech in gyms that you've seen?
So the big problem with humans in general is that we are present bias, meaning that we do not properly assess the future consequences of our behaviors. That there's we tend to shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes to things we do in the future, right? We want the sweet chocolate bar now without considering what that might do to our health later. We want to watch an episode on Netflix without thinking about what we could be doing in our time and how if we spend a little bit more time writing our novel, we could actually get that done in the future. We don't exercise today because it's hard and we don't want to get sweaty without thinking about how we want to look better and feel better in the future. So this idea of present bias is something that plagues the human condition. Whenever there's something hard today, I want to put it off until tomorrow. So what these technologies do is that they bring the rewards, they make those rewards more present. They bring those closer to the present moment. So, to encourage me to go on an elliptical machine or on a spin machine or something, if I can do something that's fun in the moment, then that helps me do that behavior so that I can get the long-term benefits. Whereas if I'm just there, on my own, trying to grind away and I'm sweating and suffering, all I feel is the pain without enough of the pleasure and without enough of the rewards. Now, the ultimate goal, the long-term goal, is to help people enjoy these behaviors. I mean, this is the difference between somebody who exercises regularly and lives a healthy lifestyle, eats the right foods. The secret brain hack of these people is that they actually enjoy the things that others disdain. And that's the ultimate brain hack. And why? Because there is something in their habits that moves that reward forward, right? They enjoy running with a buddy. They like the taste of healthy food. They enjoy the self-image that they're reinforcing about what kind of person they are. These are all the things that I think technology can help bring into the present moment when we integrate them.
You've developed the hook model, and it's written in your book. It's trigger, action, variable reward. I think that's a key piece, is the variation. And then, of course, the investment phase, this trigger, action, variable, and investment. How did you actually come up with this? How did this come through you? Was it personal? Was it business? Was it both?
A little bit of both. I mean, I had a period in my life when my last company was acquired. I had some time on my hands, and I was trying to figure out, what do I do next? How do I allocate my human capital? And so I started thinking kind of like a venture capitalist of where could I put my time and effort? And I came up with this hypothesis that habits are really going to matter, that as interfaces in our lives shrink, meaning as technology just kind of becomes part of our day-to-day lives, we really have to be cued by habits because there isn't the real estate, right? We're not watching television and seeing commercials that tell us what to do. We are interacting with technologies that help us facilitate our behavior. So I really want to understand, what is it that makes technology specifically so habit forming? And then the hook model, it's the research that I use in the hook model is very old research. I don't think there's anybody cited in the book, maybe a couple people, but most of the research in the book is 50, 60-year-old research. It's not new stuff. But it's applied in a new way. It's applied to this field of how do we make digital products things that people want to come back to. Of course, in hopes that we can help people with these healthy habits.
Yes. And, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think when we look at the fitness industry as a whole, there's billions of dollars that are being dedicated towards connecting technology to improve consumer habits. So the trigger phase, the action phase, this is the triggers that we kind of have a reaction or a response to. For people that don't know this hook model, Nir, explore with us these phases of the hook model as it relates to the fitness industry.
What's a habit-forming product or habit-forming technology that we can maybe use as a case study? Is there anything that comes top of mind?
I think wearables are something that everyone knows. Everyone knows that wearables are designed for hopefully making us move more, sleep better, eat better.
Okay. So let's say you're using a wearable device that tracks your sleep, for example. I'm just thinking about that because I have one of these things. So there's two types of triggers. Let's start with the external trigger. The external trigger is going to be some kind of notification, a message, a ping, a ding, an email, something that tells you, hey, this is what you do next. That's the external trigger. The action is the simplest behavior done in anticipation of a reward. So the first thing I might do with my wearable is to open the app that comes with it. Now the variable reward is to see how I slept, and that number bounces up and down. So there's a lot of research around how variability keeps us engaged, that if you see the same number every single day, then that doesn't become very interesting, which, by the way, is why some fitness wearables don't work. Because after a while, you're like, okay, I still didn't walk my 10,000 steps. Well, what else is new? What else is different? It gets very boring after a while. Whereas you could say with my sleep wearable, every night I sleep a little differently. And so I open the app and I want to see how I did. It gives me this nice score. It tells me how I'm doing. And that changes. Sometimes I get bad sleep. Sometimes I get good sleep. Sometimes I expected that I got bad sleep, but it turns out I had a great night's sleep. And that varies from day to day. And then the investment is what I do with that data. What do I give? So that in this particular wearable for sleep tracking, it asks me to confirm how I slept. And so by entering some piece of data, telling the app what's going on, I'm actually making the product better and better with you. So I can adjust different settings. I can change the timing of when it wakes me up or when I plan to go to bed. I can adjust all these little settings and give it additional data, which makes it better and better the more I use it. So that eventually, when I run through these 4 steps of trigger, action, reward, and investment, if I do that enough times, eventually I don't need any kind of reminders. So that brings us to the second type of trigger, which I talked about earlier, is the internal trigger. So today, I don't even need an external trigger anymore. I use this device habitually. Nothing tells me to use this wearable. It's just part of my day-to-day routine. It's become a habit. It's triggered by a sensation in me, an internal trigger to open this app and check how I slept.
Man, the power of this is we talked about self-determination theory with Jan Middelkamp on the podcast before. We'll link that in the show notes. You're bringing up such a powerful point, Nir, because if the motivation, the inspiration doesn't come from within the user, no device is really going to matter.
Right. Eventually, if it's always externally triggered, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that does tend to peter out, that eventually people get tired of it. It doesn't add that much value to their life. They just disconnect from it altogether. Whereas if you can make it something that's internally triggered, if it's an internal motivator based on typically some kind of negative emotion that this product is the salve for, is a solution for, then you don't need any of those external triggers. And it becomes a huge competitive advantage. I mean, if you think about it from a business context, why is it that you use Google instead of Bing? Is it because Google's so much better than Bing? No, it actually turns out that in head-to-head comparisons, people can't actually tell the difference between the two. It's just that you have a habit of this is where I go. I don't even think about it. I don't even consider the competition. Just like with any of our products, wouldn't it be great if people formed a habit with your product so that whenever they consider, do I use you or your competitor, they always use you. Why? Because it just is first to mind. It's the habitual use of your product versus somebody else's.
Man, I'm thinking about the 4 written by Scott Galloway, Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and I realized earlier today I made 2 purchases on Amazon. Like you said, not because it was the best, but it was just what I've trained myself to do. So this variable reward, right? Is that what I'm experiencing? Is the variation of my reward, or is that more habitual in a different context?
You know, Amazon does this in spades. It's interesting. You know, I have this theory that Amazon's competition is no longer any retailer. They don't care about Walmart. They don't care about Target. Like, they've long passed where they care about competing with any other retailer. Their competition, you know who their competition is? It's the to-do list. It's the shopping list. They want to change the habit of you writing something down and possibly forgetting. Their goal is to make it easier for you to buy than to write it down and risk buying it somewhere else or forgetting altogether. So if you think about what Amazon in particular has done, I mean, they are masters of this hook. They want to make it so easy for you to buy something. I mean, look at what they've done, right? So first they have the website. They cannibalized traffic to the website by building a mobile app. Then they started with the Amazon Alexa, which you can just order things from, you know, with your voice. Now they have this Zapper thing that you can order for $20, but you get a refund for it. It's like one of those checkout lasers that you get at a grocery store. And then they had this dash button that you can literally put this little button near whatever it is that you want to reorder. And with one button, it's already coming to your door. I think in the next few years, you're going to see Amazon just sending you products that they think you're going to need. This hook that they've built, the more you invest, the more you buy from them, the more they know what you're likely going to buy in the future. So I think there's going to be a day where Amazon just sends you stuff, and then if you don't want the stuff, you send it back. But they're going to get so good at doing that that they're going to be right most of the time.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, you know, one of the interesting things about this is, you know, I've stopped comparing prices. I'm such in an Amazon habit that I don't shop around anymore, right? Because it's just so easy. It's so convenient. I don't look at Walmart to see what their prices are. That's when they really get you.
Oh my gosh, Nir. Well, look, I'm going to ask you a big question. I know there's not one blanket answer here, but how do we get people in that mind space the same way Amazon's done, where it's so easy to instill that habit of purchasing? How do we shift that kind of framework to the fitness industry for health habits and for wellness?
You got to relentlessly focus on your hook. You've got to really think of what is the trigger, what is the action, what is the reward, and what is the investment for the behavior you want to create in your user's life. Now, I will say that you have to deliver on this. This isn't a free lunch, right? You can't build a hook around a product and not actually give the user what they came for. Then, you know, this stuff helps people do things they want to do. But if you don't deliver on your promise, people aren't going to keep doing it. So one of the problems, not to offend people in the health industry, but one of the problems that we all have in this industry is that we focus so much on exercise. This is a huge problem because we sell this promise of come to the gym and look great. I mean, that's what every ad for a gym looks like. But the fact is, you know, if we put a Jamba Juice at the exit of our gym with 60 grams of sugar in a medium juice, and the first thing people do after they just burned all those calories in the gym is reload all those calories and more on their way out, well, we're not fulfilling the promise. So, you know, this is very important. We have to show people that if you want to lose weight, if you want to live healthier, then the first thing to do is to worry about what goes in your mouth, not how you're exercising on the elliptical or something. So that, I think, is the first and foremost thing. We have to figure out what is our promise, and then how do we deliver on that promise by changing consumer habits. And that might involve more than what happens in your gym.
I think so. And I think the use of using the data inside the club, whether it's activity or workouts or heart rate, and combining the lifestyle data near how the club member is sleeping outside, what's their level of stress. I mean, the interplay between these two data sets, a lot of big box gyms are trying to make sense of this for what I believe a lot of people are trying to create is the dream dashboard, the dream ecosystem, where you can take all the data from someone's biometrics, their activity in and out of the club, and use that for virtual coaching. Are you seeing this same trend?
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I think another trend that I'd love to see more of is the social aspect of this stuff. That's kind of gone away, unfortunately, but I think people are desperate to build these habits around community, right? So that's an untapped resource. If you think about many of the world's most successful behavior change programs like Weight Watchers and Alcoholics Anonymous, it's really about the community as much as it is about changing behavior. Because if you can bond people together, if you can build a habit of, every Tuesday I go to the club because that's where my friends are, that's where people who I know and who know me hang out, that's incredibly important. And I don't see, and this, by the way, doesn't necessarily have anything to do with technology. Mm-hmm. It can be a gateway to facilitate different things that can be used with the technology. But this is not rocket science stuff, right? This is some very inexpensive stuff that you can do to help build, like, what about a cohort of people who all started around the same time, and we're all going to do some kind of fitness plan together, or we're just going to get together sometime. People really want that kind of stuff. And I think if you can make that the habit, if you can make a social bond something that people come in time and time again.
Let me just ask you this then. So you brought up such a great point, Nir, around delivering on the promise. I think that is a big gem from today's conversation, that we get so wrapped up in this industry around the new device, the novelty aspect of the tech or the wearable or whatever it is, that sometimes that promise, delivering on that promise, is the thing that actually gets faded. The focus is lost on that.
Right.
How do you think that trainers, club operators, just basically anyone in the industry can keep that top of mind, that delivering on the promise, and not get caught up in the novelty and the newness of the tech?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to ask yourself, what is it that your user wants, right? What is it that your customer actually is looking for? And this depends on who your customer is. I mean, there's lots of different personas that might come to the club. Are you going to cater to the person who already works out actively, maybe at another facility, and you want them to come to your facility? Well, that's going to be one type of promise. If it's somebody who's, a couch potato who's just trying to get fit after New Year's, that's a different type of persona. So I think the first question is, who do you want to target, right? What's the persona of the person that you are going to go after? And then what does that person want? And if you think you can deliver that, if you actually can deliver on that promise of what it is they want, then go full steam ahead. But you've got to actually deliver it, right? If you don't know what it is that your customer actually wants, is it community? Is it health? Is it to look better? Is it to hang out with other people? It doesn't matter what that necessarily is, but you've A, got to know what it is, and then B, be able to actually back it up. So what most clubs do is that they sell good looks, but they don't deliver on good looks, right? Because there's so much else involved with losing weight and getting in shape than just what they can, or just what they're actually able to deliver.
And thank you for this reminder too, because, marketing that produces short-term results, getting it in before closeout for all the people that work in big box gyms like I used to, that's important because we all want to meet bottom line. Yet we also have this duality near where we have to meet bottom line, but we also have to deliver on the promise. I think these are equally as powerful. In your book, you actually wrote a little bit more about this too. And one of the things I remember in the conversation we had just about a year ago is that we were talking about making these behaviors easier. When we look at the aspect of community, do you feel like if new members come in, maybe 30 members join a gym, and then they get to be enrolled in a class specifically for new members, would that tie in the technology there, having almost like a new member orientation group where they get social contagion?
Sure. I think there's a lot we can do. I mean, there's so many off-the-shelf technologies that we can use just to connect people together. I mean, we need to leverage these platforms like WhatsApp or, just name it. There's so many different communication tools that we can use to build groups around. I mean, you don't have to build your own necessarily. You can just utilize these things to help people maybe keep each other accountable. Like, what if you set up a special group, maybe even for existing members? By the way, I want to make sure that we emphasize here that this all starts with how we incentivize our teams, right? So if your team is incentivized on new members every month, that doesn't incentivize keeping the members you have. So it all starts from what our metrics are and how we track ourselves and how we hold our teams accountable. So if retention is important to you, and I think if you look at your numbers, you'll see it's going to be way more profitable to keep people you have than to spend money on acquiring new users. Well, then, what could we do? So back to this conversation earlier, let's say we had some kind of program that facilitated a group where we hold each other accountable, where we all do a program together. I don't know what that program is. Maybe it's the Whole30, maybe it's the Atkins uphill. I don't care what it is, but maybe we all go through it together for a set period of time. And that's facilitated by the club, perhaps.
And we're talking about hooking people to healthy behaviors, which you talked about this present moment. You said present bias. I want to touch on this again, because even with the use of all this tech, do you see that the present bias is still getting in the way? Is it still blocking people from even caring if they're using a device?
Sure. So that's where we get into overuse of our devices. When we are continuing to scroll on Facebook or watch a YouTube video or a Netflix video when we should be doing something else. That's the same exact effect at play there. It's any time that we are doing something against our better interests. Now, by the way, this is not a new problem. Socrates and Plato talked about the nature of what they called akrasia, which is doing something against your better interest. So people have always procrastinated. They've always been present bias. It's just the medium has changed so that today, procrastination is easier than ever, and getting distracted is easier than ever because we have these, endless distractions that we carry around with us in our pockets today.
Wow, Nir, just such wisdom that you're giving to all of us. I know people are going to literally stop, hit rewind, listen to that again, because this relies on all of our psychological framework, especially in the fitness industry, for being successful. If we just accept that we are a human spirit, we're at this intersection of technology right now. I think a lot of people are still trying to figure this out, Nir. Who do you believe is doing a great job when you look at the health and wellness and fitness space? Are there any products or companies that come to mind that are doing a great job of combining the human and the tech?
That's a tough question. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I will tell you my personal experience. A few months ago, I worked with a guy who has a website called Get Fit Over 40, and he's a virtual personal trainer. He has a bunch of YouTube videos. And so I just emailed him one day and I said, look, I want you to be my trainer, and he lives in Canada, but can you just help me out, right? I want you to keep me accountable virtually. And it really did work. It was amazing. He used a hodgepodge of apps that he hadn't built, but that he likes. He told me to install Gym Hero Pro, and he told me to install just a bunch of different tools that helped him see what I was doing. And that was amazing, right? Having that virtual accountability, even though he didn't actually spend that much time, but just knowing that he would spend 30 seconds looking over my routine and seeing what I did and helping me with my eating habits was very, very effective. So I think that's something we underplay, that the social rewards, what I call rewards of the tribe, are incredibly powerful. And they're particularly powerful because they move that reward to today. So when I went to the gym every day and I didn't really feel like it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to actually get my butt there, I knew that Mike was going to keep tabs on me. And if I didn't show up, that he was going to text me and say, hey, I didn't see your workout was logged. What's going on? And so that was very, very effective.
How do you see your work affecting our space, Nir, in the next few years? You have the pulse of technology with everyone that you've studied from and everyone that you affect at really the pinnacle of how behavioral design affects fitness, wellness, and health. How do you think your work is going to affect our space in the coming years?
I think the big shift is going to be that we are going to see feedback from our behaviors become something that we see faster and faster. So, I think in the coming years, we're going to see glucose monitors that continuously tell us what our glucose levels are. That's something that's currently available only for type 1 diabetics. But I think that that's something that, in the next decade or so could be something that you see goes mainstream. And what would that look like? What would that look like if everybody knew what their glucose levels were at all times? That would be very interesting, right? Because then we could actually see how our movement, what our food does to us kind of in real time. And that's just one example. I think we're going to see all sorts of ways that tracking our behavior in real time becomes actionable. Because right now, a lot of the data we're getting comes too late. So, if you're just using a step counter and now it's, 9 p.m. and you haven't met your steps, well, it's late, I'm tired, it's not going to happen that late at night. Wouldn't it be great if there was something that told you, hey, before you eat this food you're about to eat, like imagine we've got something that actually, could tell you before you eat the food, if there's some kind of computer vision or an artificial intelligence that could see what you're about to eat and then suggest, hey, this is how this is likely going to affect you because it affected you like this last time. That's the problem today, is that we have to move the triggers before the action. Whereas today, many of the technologies out there, they only tell you, they only give you useful information after you've already done the bad behavior.
Man, this is so powerful because in September, Fitbit and Dexcom announced they're developing that CGM for people living with diabetes. I think you're right. It's only a matter of time before the empowered health person or just somebody that wants to be, a citizen scientist gets that data all the time. And then I could see that impacting global health exponentially.
Yeah, because right now people just don't know. People just don't have a clue. I mean, my mother-in-law is diabetic. And so, she taught me how to prick my finger and all that. So I just want to test, to see how different foods affect me. And it's phenomenal, right? You really don't know until you start testing yourself. I luckily don't have diabetes, but to actually see, wow, sweet potato spikes my blood sugar, but rice doesn't for some reason, or, this quantity affects me, but then if I go overboard, here's what it does to me. To be able to see that in real time is really phenomenal.
And we'll also link Rob Wolf's book, the Wired to Eat book, where he used this Dexcom for 7 days. He has a 7-day test about this. Just such a phenomenal conversation, Nir. This is the very last piece of our show. It's 6 fast questions for a behavioral designer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
If there was one thing you could change about our fitness industry, what might that be?
Start with what we eat first.
How does a behavior change expert like Nir Eyal start his day? What is your morning routine?
A great question. I head to the club. First thing I do in the morning is I have a cup of coffee. I sit with my wife and my daughter for breakfast, and then I head to the club.
How has your health habits changed as a father, as stepping into the role of both a professional and a father, compared to when you were single?
I think I've had to be much more deliberate about my time. I think in this day and age, you have to turn your values into your schedule. So if you don't plan the time for what you want to do every day, somebody else is going to grab that time. It's going to be a colleague. It's going to be your kids. It's going to be Facebook and YouTube. Somebody's going to grab that time. So I think I've become much more diligent about actually booking literally every minute of my day.
That sounds like my life, and I don't even have kids yet. So when we look at multitasking, do you believe that multitasking is possible? There's many studies about how women and men have differences in this, but multitasking, is that a real thing?
It is actually. So it's actually a myth. I know you've been told and everybody's been told that you can't multitask. It's actually not exactly true. You can multitask, but only on different channels. So for example, you can't listen to 2 people trying to talk to each sides of your head, one in the left ear, one in the right ear, because that's both on the audio channel. So you won't be able to make sense of 2 people talking to you at the same time. But you certainly can have a conversation on one channel, the auditory channel, while you're walking with someone, for example. So this is actually a trick I love to use when I'm working out, when I'm in the club. I listen to audiobooks. I listen to my pocket articles, and I can certainly do 2 things at one time. I'm definitely multitasking. You just can't do the same type of thing at the same time.
Who has been a mentor for you, or who continues to inspire you to do this work at technology and humanity's intersection?
I think it's the entrepreneur. I've started 2 companies, and I know how hard it is to build a company. I'm not just an academic who writes books. I've been on the front line of starting and thankfully sold the 2 companies. But really who I write for, who I get inspired by, is the person who is building a product that they know can improve people's lives, but they can't figure out. They're struggling with, why aren't people using it? It's a good product, and they can't figure out why. That's really who inspires me, because I've been that person. I've banged my head against the wall for years trying to figure out how to help my customers do the things that would help improve their lives. And so that's really my inspiration.
Nir, last question here. Possibilities come up a lot on the show. Dreams are big, and then action doesn't always equal the application of the dream or the ideas. But when you look at this intersection of fitness and wellness and our technology, what do you see possible to impact human health globally and also to drive revenue for the space?
I think that technology has just started to scratch the surface of what's possible. I think that this basic trend that we see us moving towards, of feedback coming faster, still hasn't reached the golden age. I mean, when we have the kind of biometrics that can tell us in real time how our environment affects our body and how our environment affects our behavior, I think that will have some really profound consequences for good.
nirandfar.com is your website, NIRANDFAR. Is there anything we missed, Nir, when we look at how technology impacts fitness? Anything you can leave for parting guidance with our fitness pros and club owners?
I think you nailed it. I think you had some fantastic questions. This was really fun.
Super fun, and just such a pleasure to connect with you again. We'll also link our episode on Wellness Force if anybody wants to check that out. Nir, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
It's more profitable for clubs to keep their existing members than to acquire new ones. Gym owners must not fall into the mentality that losing customers each year is simply par for the course, and that all they have to do is keep advertising to bring in new business. Nir recommends placing a heavy emphasis on using tech that will engage the member and keep them coming back, so businesses save on costly advertising and avoid aggressive marketing campaigns. Nir reminds us that we have to understand human behavior is symptomatic of what's known as present bias. This tendency provides the importance of creating an immediate reward system to hook our customers and bring the gratification from their actions closer to the present moment. Using exciting new technology and social contagion can create better exercise habits in our members by adding more enjoyment to the workout experience. With the exciting advances in technology, it's important to develop a truly ethical framework for hooking people through psychological manipulation, some of the technologies we see today drive addiction with little regard for the detrimental impact on consumer health. But Nir does believe if we keep wellness at the forefront of our product creation and tech implementation, we will be successful in using technology to build healthy habits and enhance the lives of our customers. Thank you for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. Here's a quick message from Brian O'Rourke.
Hello, everyone. This is Brian O'Rourke. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. I also want to extend our thanks to Josh and the many, many wonderful professionals who've contributed their time and expertise for free for the health club and fitness industry at large. Wouldn't you like your fitness brand, product, or service to be featured on a podcast like this? I know I would. And that's why the Fitness Industry Technology Council, myself, and our companies like Moon Mission Media, Baderi Ventures, and Vertimax, among others, have been underwriting the podcast for the last 9 months. Check the show notes for details and consider becoming a sponsor. It's a great way to reach thousands of industry professionals in the fitness and health club space and be a part of educating people on technology adoption and all the opportunities it's going to provide. So please consider joining us here at the podcast, and we look forward to the many series of podcasts ahead. Thanks so much.